I think we got 7 o'clock, so why don't we roll?
Okay, they can catch up or view it later, I guess. All right, go ahead.
Okay. As we've been suggesting over the last couple of weeks, what we're going to do tonight is go through, whoop, got a little echo going on it. We're going to be going through a couple of the forums that we'll be using on Saturday and for time immemorial coming forward, the ICS-213 and the ICS-309. We're going to be three of us essentially taking the place of people in different positions in the chain of communication as we go. If you have a question that seems immediately important, go ahead and insert it. But for the most part, we're hoping we're going to cover your questions, and we'll definitely have a time at the end for questions. So unless there are any important announcements or questions before we start, I'll put some things on the screen and we'll get rolling. Anybody have a thing to say, or shall we get it started? Let's do it. Here we go. Whoop, wait a minute. I'm seeing a Thea hand. Go ahead, Thea. But I'm not hearing you.
I'm sorry. I'm curious to know if we have anybody here from the Southwest District, or if they do not know their district.
I turned mine on, we'll get an echo.
I know, that's why I turned mine on.
You should mute yourself.
Okay, maybe the way that could wait till later.
Okay.
There's just a lot of people
Well,
here
I
I'm not familiar with, so I was curious, some kind of introductions. But you might introduce yourself, Mike, and
I'll give that a start. I'm Mike, KJ78CH. Oh, by the way, might make a request. If you do want to mute up until we have the question part, that might be helpful, just to keep the audio aimed on our speakers as we go. We're going to be going over the 213 and the 309 tonight. And this is being recorded. If you're concerned about having your face show up, feel free if you want to hide that. But we will be recording this. It will be made available for people that can't be on this evening. So, okay, as we go through our communications, things start off on the ground with the disaster assessment teams that are out in the field. And the first time those of us who are radio people get involved is a radio team leader. And they're the people who, either by themselves or with the team, the damage assessment teams and other folks, collect the original information. The first time the information goes on to an ICS-213, it's usually going to be the radio team leader. Radio team leader then is going to, after completing a 213, they transmit it to neighborhood ham, and everyone logs along the line their radio communications, both incoming and outgoing. So the radio team leader, right off the bat, goes to the neighborhood ham, and I need to get something out of the way of my screen here, hopefully. The neighborhood ham receives the communication from the radio team leader, does their 213, their 309, and then they're going to send the information next up to the district net control. District net control receives the radio transmission, completes their own 213. They log their incoming and outgoing on their 309, and then they make the final transmission, at least in terms of the initial upstream chain, to the EOC. And the EOC is where that information is received, and hopefully action can be taken on it as resources are available. Tonight, we're not going to cover downstream questions and communications, just to simplify things, but we're primarily concentrating on how we get the information from teams on the ground to the EOC where something can be done. Okay, I'm going to take the part of a radio team leader to start off here. And I'm going to be working with my team in the field for tonight's presentation. I'm assuming that I am in just verbal communication with my team. They've gathered information, which I'm now going to enter on the first ICS-213 in a chain. I'm going by the name of Mr. Natural tonight. I want to thank Jerry for naming me here. I often felt unnatural, but tonight I'm going to be Mr. Natural. First thing we're going to fill out is in the upper right-hand corner. For those of you who haven't seen the newer version of these forms, we have a field which is the message ID number, upper right. Now, as the radio team leader, I'm going to have a unique prefix for my message ID. In this case, I'm from Santa Clara Sedona Drive, hence the prefix SCSD. This communication is the very first one I'm filling out. So my serial is 001. Of course, as we continue on, I just keep upping that serial number. Hopefully we won't need all 1,000 of those numbers. Okay, I'm going to be communicating to eventually the EOC. Now, as we fill these out, you'll notice that boxes 2 through 7 are going to remain consistent. Andy has used the analogy that this is a lot like an Amazon package, which may come from Atlanta, Georgia. And when it leaves Atlanta, Georgia, it's going to have my address in Eugene, Oregon on it, even though it's got a lot of stops along the way. So block 2 is the ultimate destination of this communication, which is the EOC. The next block is for me to fill out as the originator of this particular communication. So my name and my position go here. Now the subject line, and this may be new for some of you, is going to have 3 parts. Now that's going to be our standard. The first part is going to be the originating message ID number. Now in this case, that matches the one in the upper left-hand corner, but that's only because in this case, I am the originator of this communication. You'll see that the upper right-hand corner one will change as we go along. Second component of the subject block, the address or location of the incident. The third component is an extremely concise description of what's going on. Block 5 is going to be the date, and the standard on the date is a 6-digit number with 2 slashes to divide month, day, and year. But in each case, we use a 2-digit day, 2-digit month, 2-digit day, 2-digit year. And we'll want to keep that consistent with the slashes between. Be very careful with your slashes because they can end up looking like 1s or 7s. The next item will be the time. The standard here will be a 4-digit number, no colon, no slash, and this is military 24-hour time. So this 0915 is 9:15 a.m. If it were 1 o'clock in the afternoon, that would be 1300. For military time, remember, up until 12, you use those first 12 digits. When you get to 1, you start adding on to the first 12 hours of the day. There is an explanation that Andy has provided up on the website if that's a concept you need to work with a little bit. Next component is the actual contents of the message. For our exercises, you will want to make sure that you precede and succeed the content of this with the phrase, "This is an exercise," just in case we get somebody that happens to be on the frequency that hears all these terrible things happening. We want to make sure that they know it's not for real, that we're conducting the exercise. Now, for me, as a person filling out this form, when I'm communicating it, I want to divide it up into easily digested chunks. You'll notice we have here what are basically 4 bullet points. When I'm reading this out for the next step, I'm going to be reading those one line at a time, and all of this information on the whole form, I'll be reading very slowly, very carefully and clearly. and be waiting, also giving my listener an opportunity to respond that they have heard it. And Andy, what's the phrase we're using? Just whoop, you're muted there, Andy.
Sorry about that. Yeah, we're using copy as a shorthand, or you can say I copy, but just plain old copy will work. And that is also on the Pro Word sheet. That is also on the EugeneEmComm.org page.
Right. So as you're reading it out and getting feedback, copy acknowledges that it's been successfully communicated. Okay, the next block that I'm going to be filling out is block 8. And my name goes into the name block on the left-hand side, and my position and title, in this case, I'm the Sedona Drive radio team leader, go into the block on the right-hand side. Now, for the sake of this exercise, we're going to assume that at this point, I have communicated this information to the next person in the process, and that is going to be the neighborhood ham. Whoop. But first of all, I guess I better fill out my 309. And this is the 309. We're going to go through the top section on this first time through it. But after we get to the other readers, just know that every person along the chain that is a radio operator maintains their own log, their own 309, and you fill out the header as you begin your day. Then you fill out the lower parts per call. So on the header, we will have the start date and time. Notice we're using the agreed upon formats. The next item is going to be block 3, my tactical ID, which is the Sedona Drive radio team leader. The incident name, which of course for Saturday will just be exercise. Then my station location, which for this example would be Sedona Drive in Santa Clara and Eugene. Then my call sign, my printed name. Now in this case, I did not have an incoming call because it was my team that generated the actual information. So I'm only going to show you here my outgoing log. If I would have happened to get this from an FRS radio, I would have an incoming line, but you'll see how that works as we get to other parts of the chain here. So my outgoing line for my log is going to show my message ID. And again, this is me as the call originator now, not the information originator. The time that the call is made is entered next. And then I'm going to the Santa Clara neighborhood ham. The subject that it goes into block 12 should match exactly the subject from the ICS-213. In this case, I have now completed my call to Andy, who's playing the part of the neighborhood ham. And as he's listening to me, he's going to fill out his 213. So Andy, you're on.
All right, thank you, Mike. All right, so I got a call from the Sedona Drive saying, I have a message. Are you ready to copy? So as he's calling, I would either say wait 1, and I'll grab me a 213, and then I will go to the upper right-hand corner for the message identifier, and I will write down my message identifier, which is a Santa Clara neighborhood ham, and this happens to be my first message of the day. And so once that's done, then I will reply back to the radio team leader. I say, ready to copy, go ahead, radio team leader. This is Santa Clara neighborhood ham. And so the radio team leader starts to radio and send the message. And the radio team leader will say, block 2, EOC. And then I'll write that down. Do I have to click?
Let's see, I have a mouse that got someplace. There we go.
Okay.
And it got
then,
ahead of itself.
Okay, so like I said, the radio team leader will say block 2, EOC, and then I'll say copy. And then radio team leader say block 3, Mr. Natural, radio team leader. And then I'll say copy when I've completed. Then the radio team leader say block 4, S, and more likely we'll probably say Sierra Charlie Sierra Delta 001/1234 Sedona Drive /house shifted. And then I will reply with copy. And then the radio team leader say block 5 100423, and I'll say copy. Radio team leader say block 6 09er15, and I'll say copy. And radio team leader say block 7. This is an exercise. I'll say copy. Radio team leader say house is tilted to one side. I'll say copy. Roof partially fallen into house. I'll say copy. Front entry not accessible. I'll say copy. Residents outside unharmed. I'll say copy. Then he'll say, this is an exercise. I'll say copy. And then more likely he'll say, Santa Clara Neighborhood Ham, this is Senator radio team leader. How copied? And I'll read back, or I'll say, I copied all. And he'll say Neighborhood Ham, this is radio team leader, out. And I'll say, this is Santa Clara Neighborhood Ham, KJ7JDN, out. And then I'll go and I will prove the message by placing my name, Fluky Foot, and my position, which is the Santa Clara Neighborhood Ham, and my call sign. So then I will go over to my 309 message log. And the top part I should have already filled out prior to receiving this message from the neighborhood radio team leader. So I will go down to block 10. And so I will put the time that I received the call from the radio team leader, which was about 0925. And I received it from Santa Clara Sedona Drive radio team leader. And of course, block 12 is identical to the subject line on the message. So now that I've got that logged in, that I've received the message, now it's time to send this message on up to my district net control. So now I'm going to take my message identifier and I'm going to place it on the log. And I'm going to put the time that I'm sending it to the district net control, which is 0940. I had to go get a cup of coffee. So it took me a little time before I sent this. So 0940. And I'm sending it to the Northwest net control. And the subject line is going to be the same. And so once that's completed, I've got that in, then I give the Northwest net control a call saying, Northwest net control, this is Santa Clara Neighborhood Ham. I have a message. Are you ready to copy? So the Northwest net control will reply to me saying, Santa Clara Neighborhood Ham, standby 1, and they will gather their 213, and then they in tune will take it from there.
And as the district net control, I am going to say to the neighborhood ham that I'm going to get ready to copy. Give me 1 minute. And the first thing I'm going to do is fill out my message ID up there. And then I'm going to say to the neighborhood ham, block 2, ready to copy. And he's going to give me, of course, EOC. And we're going to go on with through 3, 4, 5, and 6. Remember, these do not change. And then we'll go through one line by a time slowly. And I like the way Andy did it. This is an exercise. And I would say copy. House is tilt. We've gone through this, so I don't think we have to do it again. So now we've got all of 7. And now what I'm going to do is fill out line 8 that I've received it. And position and title, Northwest Network Control, and my call sign. And then I'm going to go over to the other form. Going ahead. Next.
I think should be on it.
Oh, I'm sorry. To Jerry, which is our communications log. Again, the whole top section was filled out before I even turned the ham radio on. I'm at my station and I'm ready to go. Now, in my case, I'm actually going to need 2 lines here. So the first line I put in is showing the message that I received from the neighborhood ham. So block 10 is the time. Then this is from the Santa Clara neighborhood ham. I'm sorry, I have a frog in my throat tonight. And of course, the subject line does not change. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to attempt to send this up to the EOC. And a couple things we found out last time is that because there's no life or limb or anything serious, it may be a day or 2 before the EOC wants to hear this type of report. So for now, we're going to do it on the next line as if they were willing to take it right now. And I put my number, then the time that I actually got to talk to the EOC. Notice it's 20 minutes later, 23 minutes later. 2 becomes EOC. And then again, the subject line as we have kept it constant throughout this. Now, also from experience from last year, more than likely, these are not going to be in order. I might receive it at 9:40 and not be able to transmit it till 1 o'clock. And I might have 5 other messages that have come in during that time. And I think that's about it.
Good job, Jerry, because I was going to bring that up because if you can go back to that slide, if you would, on the 309, yeah, back to the District 309. And just like Jerry said, you know, he may have the first 5 lines may be nothing but incoming messages, and he hasn't sent anything out. So don't think that these messages are going to be paired together. They're not. So good job, Jerry. I'm glad you brought that up.
Thank you. Okay, well, I see hands up in the chat. Are there changes from how the forms are filled out for Andy's examples last month? Andy, do you want to field that?
I'm not sure if I'll say, are there changes from how these forms were filled out from Andy's example last. I can't remember what the examples were from last month, to be honest with you, so I don't know. I know that we've made some changes to we've added the message identifier to the top right of the 309, and we've added the far left column the top left, we've added message identifier to the top of the 213, far right 213, and we've added a far left column on the 309. And I think that's the only changes for those two documents. Now, there has been some changes to the I guess what is it? The Eugene I can't remember what you called it there, Mike. The message identifier scheme that's on the Eugene EmComm.org page that has been changed and updated. So as each of the districts work with those ID numbers, maybe not this drill period, but maybe for next year, and as you start developing and getting comfortable with these ID numbers, we'll want to apply those to that document. Right now, it's a one-pager, so I envision that as we add to it, it'll be a couple pages as each of the districts and neighborhoods start identifying their damage assessment teams with a identifier. I hope does that answer your question, Craig? Or no?
Yeah, I think so. I was wondering how we make sure those IDs are unique. So we need to look at your list for the neighborhood level or whatever. And then if we're assigning like street things for different teams, I guess we would do that.
And you had another question, should the message numbers be assigned in the order they are sent, or are they, or the order they are received?
Like your example of Jerry having, 5 things received before he sends any. Should he be putting numbers on them as he receives them, or should he be putting numbers on them as he sends them?
Oh, you're talking about for his outgoing messages, yeah.
Yeah.
As he prepares to send it out, he needs to put a number on it, yes.
So they're in order of being sent. Okay.
So actually, I think, and Craig, I may be misunderstanding here, but I think those numbers, they get assigned as you fill out the 213.
Yeah.
They get assigned before they end up on the 309. So every time I get a 213, the first thing I do is assign the next available number serially. Yeah. Now, when they go out, and especially like at the district level, they may not be going out in order as he writes them down on the 309, but on his own 213s, the 213s all get assigned just in order.
So those numbers are in the order that he receives them, then, not the order he sends them.
Right.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so, yeah, and a problem that I can see already, as for the Northeast District, I have a tray, and we have a tray that we use, and the top tray is for emergency. The next one down is priority, and the next one down is routine. So as these 213s come in over the air, and we assigned a identifier number to them, we place them in those respective trays. We've got to somehow keep track of what number is next. So we've got to have some kind of we've got to come up with something to say, okay, our next identifier number is going to be this number, because once they go into the priority routine, they're going to sit there for a while. So we've got to know, well, what is the next number that goes on a 213? So that's the next thing we have to work on. Either have a list of numbers and we scratch through them as we use them or something, but yes, I can see that could be a problem.
I was planning to just use a red pen and put the 3 statuses on the sheets and keep them in numerical order.
Okay, Mike?
That was
Yeah, my thought was that as I finish at 213, and I keep my 213s on a clipboard, as I pull that off the clipboard, I just write my next number on the top of the next form, even before I get a call. And that way
Okay.
it's ready to go.
That's a good idea. Yep. Okay, yep. Let's see. Let me see. We got another one that says, how would a concise message be worded to indicate an urgent need? I.e. medical emergency, gas leak, or so forth. Okay, to answer that, that is up to the district net control. They're the ones that set the priority to the messages. So the neighborhood ham and the radio team leaders, they don't have to worry about priorities. They send what they see. And the district net will go by the table or table 6-1 or whatever it is that it's in the resource guide. I can't remember. But
Amazing.
anyway, huh?
That's amazing you remember that.
But we'll go, the district nets will follow that guide in setting priorities to the messages.
I see Nancy has her hand up before we get to Chris's question.
Okay, go ahead, Nancy.
Well, I'm going to go back to Mike, your original scenario where you were the radio team leader. And you put your name on the form. Is there any place you track the name of the damage assessment team person that identified this emergency and then relate it to you? So do you keep track of that on these forms anyplace?
So Andy, I'm going to defer to you on that one. If I'm out in the field with the team as a radio team leader, do I document if that came in verbally from someone else who it came from?
I'm sorry, I was looking at something else. One more time, Nancy.
Well,
No
I'm
problem.
trying to go back to the original scenario where Mike was being the radio team leader, and on his 213 and on his log, he's putting himself down as the originator of the message to the net
Okay.
control, the neighborhood net control.
Right.
Is there any place on one of these forms that you identify your damage assessment team member that actually saw this house that was falling down? Do you track that anywhere?
Right. The answer is no. The radio team leader is the one that originates and starts the 213. And so they are the ones that is the that will go down on what is that, block 3 of the 213. So yeah, it's not taking the limelight or the spotlight off the damage assessment teams, but the radio team leader, that's what they are. They're the radio team leaders, and that's their job, is to start the ball rolling on the 213. They are the originator. And so it comes from the radio team leader and it goes all the way up to the EOC. Let's see here. Chris says, can we add NNCV for Crescent Village? If we have a damage assessment team in Crescent Village, more than likely it will be that will probably be the 4-character designator for that, because I think we have NNLR for Lake Ridge. And so if we have Crescent Village, and in the future, we probably will have Crescent Meadows and as well. So that will be Crescent Meadows will be NNCM for a damage assessment team. Any other questions? How's everybody feeling?
Well, I'm feeling kind of befuddled because I keep calling out our FRS and GMRS operators and getting all the volunteers and scribes and people without radios to try to turn out and learn how to do all this. But now you're saying that nobody needs to except the top or higher tiers of the radio. Of course, cross training is always good, but
I'm not sure.
Well,
I'm not sure a follow theory.
I think what Andy's calling a radio team leader is what we would call one of the people that's out there with the FRS radio.
Yeah,
in our
I'm not
group.
sure.
Each
I'm not sure what,
team would
yeah, I
have
don't
a
follow what
radio-
you're saying.
Yeah, each team would have a radio team leader.
Yeah,
They would have both FRS and ham radios. They're busy.
well,
Same
no,
thing-
not the radio team leader may not have a ham radio. They could, but
Oh, yeah.
they may not. They more likely, they're just gonna have a FRS or a GMRS radio. And they're gonna pass their information to a neighborhood ham, which has both.
Gotcha. So
Yeah, it's using the term radio team leader that's really confusing instead of a DAT radio operator or DAT radio
Well,
person.
that's what FEMA is using, and we're trying to be consistent. And so, yeah. And that's, FEMA calls them recorders. And so we're trying to be consistent along those lines as well.
But I agree with Nancy. I think it's important to note somewhere who it was that observed the house, and we don't know exactly what team may be on which street. Maybe the radio team leader got a runner from a different DAT somehow.
But no, that radio team leader is part of that DAT team. So as with the example of the Santa Clara Sedona Drive damage assessment team, that radio team leader works with that team. Now, if there's another damage assessment team 2 blocks over, that team will have a radio team leader as well. You may get a radio team leader may get someone that will walk in off the street that will say, somebody's not even part of the team, just a neighbor, and say, Mrs. Jones is got a broken leg. Well, that radio team leader will take that information from that person that just came in off the street and write up a 213 saying, Mrs. Jones at such and such address or whatever, broken leg, and will generate a 213 with another message identifier from that radio team leader. Yeah. We can't hear you if you're all muted.
The neighborhood ham, the step between the radio team leader and the neighborhood ham is missing here in my mind, because they're not going to be hams in every radio team. So,
Well, that's
we
not
have-
what he's saying though. He's
we-
like for us,
Yeah.
we got FRS people, right? And they're talking to either directly to our net control, or they may be talking to an intermediate person like the quarter leader. So we're just using different words for the same things, I think.
But they were missing a transmission there between our fan net control and the neighborhood ham net control.
What they call a radio team leader is what we call our DAT team radio operator, and our neighborhood ham is a little fuzzy. Is that a quarter leader? Is that our net control? But it's kind of similar layers, I think.
If you have quite a few hams in your neighborhood, it might be beneficial to have a neighborhood net control. One person that will take the input of all the neighborhood ham traffic to, just like Gary. Gary is a district net control. But if you have like 10 hams or 8 hams working friendly neighborhood, it might be beneficial. Okay, we need to have a neighborhood net control that will actually run the communication net for friendly neighborhood and take the traffic. And then that net control would be just only this single point of contact to Gary. As is for Northeast District, we haven't got there yet. We don't have that many hams to actually warrant to have a Northeast neighbors net control, or Harlow neighbors net control, or Cal Young. We just don't have that many hams.
So Andy, the way we've been doing is we'll typically have the teams out in the field with FRS radios, they're all talking to one central FRS, GMRS net control person, and they're taking down 213s along with their scribe. And then we have another person that's the ham operator for the neighborhood, and they're the one that talks to Gary. So one person's running one set of radios, another person's running another set of radios, instead of, one person trying to have two ears going at once.
Yeah, okay, there you go. And so in the example that we just did here, we had the same thing that you're talking about, Craig, is we had our damage assessment team, and then we had our neighborhood ham, and then the district net control.
Yeah, the step that you got glossed over a little bit there was your neighborhood ham. If he's talking to FRS people, he's minding that radio, and he's also talking to the next person up on his ham radio. So that part's a little challenging unless they
That's
make people
true.
wait.
That is true. But he may be fortunate enough. Maybe he's got someone to help out to maybe just work the FRS
So-
radios or something like that.
So we
But
try to
that'll-
have two
that'll-
people co-located to do that.
Right. And that all may come with time as time goes on. I see Alina. She's got her hand up. Hey, Alina, good to see you. And you're muted.
I'm not now. So I mean, in my experience, the times that I've done this, it's really not very feasible for a person to be fielding all of the damage assessment team and relaying to the district. And so is there any problem with having another layer of documentation that has your field team coming in, like, damage assessment team, radio team leader, however we assign whatever they're at. Like they're part of a damage assessment team. So instead of saying damage assessment team 1, radio team leader DAT 1 or fan DAT 1, whatever. So the person who is taking on that neighborhood GMRS net control is fielding a lot of information from, if we have 5, 6 teams, that's a lot coming in. And so we need to be putting those messages down, and then we have a scribe person or somebody that's giving them over to our ham operator that sends them up. So it seems to me we need to have that written down.
Lena, don't forget that everything is not going to happen at once, because the EOC, like I said, they may take regular stuff 2 days from now. So that's kind of got to be pushed back to the DATs, or at least to the neighborhood hams.
Well, we had the idea the district is who prioritizes.
Yes, district prioritizes. So as for Lena's example or question that she's talking about, if I would only let a neighborhood ham work with 3 DAT teams. That no more than 3. And so
if we have 6,
We've had more than that.
yeah.
So then if you've got 6 teams, then you can either put two DAT teams per neighborhood ham. That's 3 neighborhood hams. And then those 3 would contact and would call Gary.
So basically what you're doing is eliminating our GMRS net control for our neighborhood.
I'm not eliminating it. I mean, you can still use a GMRS or FRS, whichever you're using GMRS, use the GMRS.
Oh, they're both.
Yeah. And so, but the ham radio operator hopefully will have a GMRS radio to talk to the GMRS folks that you're using. So I'm not sure. If you follow the chart, the flow chart that's in the resource guide, try to follow that, how it goes with that. But if for friendly, if it's beneficial to add another layer, then go ahead and add another layer. But just remember that the district is the one that sets a priority. The damage assessment teams and the neighborhood hams, they just pass it all up.
Right.
They just get it off at their desk. They pass it on up the chain and let the district net prioritize what it goes, put it where in a basket, and wait until the EOC calls and says, okay, Southeast 2, I'll take your emergency traffic if you have any right now. So,
Andy, but I still think there's a backflow in the sense that the neighborhood ham could say to the radio team leader, I'm busy at the moment. Please hold on for
yeah,
a while.
yeah, that's fine. You can do, yes, that's fine.
We're gonna have all
Yeah.
these hams and even the GMRS are gonna have messages flowing from both ends. They gotta
Right,
have
that's-
separate heads on.
That is a given, and that's one of the words on the pro words that's on there. If you're working with a DAT team and you get another call, and the neighborhood ham gets another call from the DAT team, they can call back, say, DAT 2, stand by, and then go right back and finish what you're doing with DAT 1. And when you're done with DAT 1, then you can go to DAT 2. This is whoever neighborhood ham, go ahead with your traffic. So yes, that's all part of running the comms. In a sense, the neighborhood ham is sort of a net control for the FRS or GMRS radios. Yes.
I still think that's too much for one person.
Okay. Hey, Mike. Yeah.
I think what I want to emphasize is that the important concept we're really looking at tonight is that whatever layers we have, it could be 5 layers, it could be 2 layers, the way the forms fit together would be the same. What we've gone through with the forms tonight. Now, the problems that you're talking about, Lena, with regards to numbers, I can relate to. I typically have had 3 FRS operators talking to me while I'm doing my ham thing. So I've got 2 radios, and oftentimes I've been broadcasting up while listening, and I've had to say stand by for as long as, in one case, 90 minutes, because I had a backlog of incoming that were priority. But again, that's separate from tonight's emphasis, which is however many layers you have, this is how the forms fit together. If you are the FRS person on this, this is how your 213 and your 309 look. If you're a ham, same deal. And within our districts, with however many volunteers we have and how many layers we end up with, those problems are going to have to be solved in a district. And as you know, gathering enough volunteers, enough radios to make it work. We don't have the structure in Northeast to do a perfect thing, but the thing we do has to use the same format for filling out 213s, filling out 309s. I'm going to be getting some 213s from walk-ins from my neighbors. I'm going to be getting some 213s from my FRS radio. And I've also got a couple of hams that check in with me. So, it's in our area, it's going to be a mess, but it's what we've got. And this is still how I'm going to fill out my forms. So that's tonight's takeaway. The other problems are ones we're all going to have to solve. How do we get enough people writing and enough people reporting to make it work? And those are big, those are big problems, but I think that's a separate problem from what we're looking at tonight.
Thanks, Mike. There's a question from Stephen. It says, if the Northeast Eugene doesn't have a neighborhood ham, what is the communication path from the radio team leader? So this is possible in any type of emergency that may happen, being that there's no one to talk to. So in that scenario, this is where you're going to have to implement a runner system. Either bicycle it or walk it, take the messages to the district net control. And so that's the way it will have to be for that one. Yes, Lena, you're muted.
Give me 1 second. My finger's not that fast. So if it might be possible, if there is somebody that has an FRS or GMRS that doesn't have a ham operator in their neighborhood or in their area, if there's a way for them to communicate to a nearby neighborhood, like say maybe Friendly has extra ham operators that they may want to see if somebody can go assist them, or relay through if they can reach somebody nearby on the GMRS or FRS for another neighborhood that's nearby that has a ham, to be able to relay an emergency message.
That's a possibility, yes. And when everything does hit the fan, so to speak, and there's some extra personnel that are available, yes, we'll share and try, and that's what this network that we have here will be sharing the information and the needs from all around the city. And hopefully we'll kind of work with each other to help out. But I'm thinking with what Steven's talking about, it could be like somebody in Harlow neighborhood over by the I-5, and there's no one there. So that something like that may happen. So and then Thea put something about saying that the Friendly Neighborhood Network was established before the response guide came out. That's good. And the tactical title names in the response guide and EmComm keep changing. I don't know if they've changed at all. It needs to be rewritten, and I haven't touched the response guide at all. I'm in the process after this exercise to go through and change scribes to recorder and some other things, but it hasn't been rewritten or changed any since it came out in 2021. But anyway,
Okay.
so
Where I
there's
get confused and
on
might be
that.
more helpful if we changed radio team leader to team radio leader and use it like DAT team radio operator. That would make more sense to me than leader. You know, I don't believe leader needs to be in that title myself, and the way we use it at least. So
Well,
that's
I'm just, like I said before, we're just following along the FEMA guidelines for their emergency communications. So we're using their acronym of radio team leader. So on that, yeah, Lena.
Is there thinking that, to me, if you're a radio team leader, you're a leader of a team of radio operators, which may not be the case.
right.
Seems more realistic.
Uh,
Have a damage assessment team, and within that, you've got a radio operator assigned to communicate.
Well, they have the radio team leader is basically the team leader over whatever radio section that you may be in charge of. So the person in charge of the district net control is the radio team leader for the district net control. The person that is in charge, or that is the neighborhood ham, that person is a radio team leader over the DAT team radio team leaders. So the radio team leaders for the DAT team is basically the radio team leaders for a DAT team that has themselves may have an FRS radio. So the radio team leader is for individuals that are in charge of the radios of their section.
So how about theoretically then the radio team leader could be the FRS GMRS net control that's the leader over all of the radio operators assigned to the DAT teams?
They are, yes, they are. In essence, they are a radio team leader. But like we're saying here on the examples from the 213, what was his name? Mr. Cool. Yeah.
Or
Yeah. He was the radio team leader for that damage assessment team, which they in turn have FRS radios on their bodies and they're walking. So he is their radio team leader, and he is the one that originated that message.
Nancy, did you have your hand up before you lowered it?
I just wanted to say that if you have these radio team leaders and the way that I think Lena and Thea are describing the way Friendly is set up, they have, whether you call it a DAT team leader or a radio team leader, they have a lot of different people calling them on FRS in their zone or whatever you call it. their section. And when they call in, do they keep a separate communication log? Or do they use a damage assessment log or something to record all this stuff? Or do they wait and on every single call they do at 213? They're gonna all be originating 213s. Am I clear on that?
So if I understand your question, so whoever is receiving the radio calls from the damage assessment teams on a radio, is that what you're talking about?
I'm just
On-
saying, if you have multiple radio team leaders, because your neighborhood is so big, you know, the FRS radio is not going to reach this person across this side of town. So if you have several of them, do each of these radio team leaders originate their own 213s?
Yes, they
Okay.
do. And they each have their own 309 log. They each have their own log and they each will generate their own 213s. Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Because the individuals that they are working with, that team's not going to radio into another person. They're only going to go to one. We're not going to have, you know, they're not going to radio the same information to multiple people. Because then that would be totally confusing. So you work with one person, and yes, if they will have their own log and they will generate their own 213s. Yeah.
So folks, I think we're at
Yes.
8 o'clock. Andy,
What? What's that?
we should probably wrap this up. It's 8 o'clock. There are other nets going on.
Oh, okay. Yes. Yes, I understand. Okay. If there's any other pressing questions, or if you have something that maybe later on you said, oh, shoot, I should have asked that. I send them in, I guess, to the EmComm.org page, right, Mike?
Yeah, the
Addressing
whoops.
that
Am I muted? No, I'm not muted. Yeah, the comments page there, a contact page. Any of those contacts go directly to Andy and to me, and so that would be a good way to ask questions.
You know, you might get later on a half hour when you're having a cup of coffee and a piece of cake tonight before you go to bed. You might say, oh man, I should have asked that. So anyway, hey, have fun this Saturday. And I know some people were confused about why is 9:30 there. Well, I wanted to put that 9:30 there because, as you know, the city emergency managers for Springfield and Eugene has stated that we, the ham operators and the damage assessment teams in neighborhoods, we self-activate. We don't have to be told by the city to mobilize. So after a major event, we self-activate. So that 9:30 is to simulate that we're already hitting the floor running. We're out busy. We're collecting facts. We're communicating with our damage assessment teams and everything before the EOC even comes up on the air. So that's what that's to simulate. So, but anyway, have fun this weekend. Enjoy yourselves. If you're going to have a team that actually is going to go out and walk, and you are a radio team leader for that damage assessment team, make sure you have you do a safety brief to tell them to make sure that they stay safe. Watch out for, well, we won't have anything down, any down power lines, but you know, watch out for dogs, pets, and cars and stuff. And also be courteous to people that may ask them questions. What are you doing?
And don't forget that at 1:30, we're meeting back here for a debrief.
Oh, it's 1:30.
Debrief.
Okay.
Let's see, is that 1:30 or 1?
I put 1 o'clock
It's
in a
one-
note.
I think it's 1
1
o'clock.
Oh, okay, good.
1 o'clock, Jerry.
Great presentation, you guys. Thank you so much.
On this same
All right.
link, right?
Okay, 1
Yeah,
o'clock.
same link.
Okay.
1 o'clock, Jerry. Yeah. Have a good weekend.
Thank you all.
Oh, we'll see you
Have fun
Saturday.